Today we are moving on to our second topic for the year, analyzing and using proportional relationships. In this first section of Topic 2, Section 2-1, the focus will be on connecting ratios, rates, and unit rates. Let's begin at the top of the page by defining those three key terms. First, the term ratio means to compare two quantities. These quantities will have the same unit of measure. For example, we might compare the number of hybrid students in class to the number of remote students. Now, while those words are different, the unit of measure, which is students, is still the same. Number 2, a rate compares two quantities with different units of measure. And an example would be the dollars earned and the number of hours. So dollars and hours are very different units of measure. Finally, a unit rate is a type of rate with a denominator of 1. And an example of this would be like 45 miles per hour. So miles and hours are very different units of measure. However, the number at the bottom, the denominator, is understood that it is a 1. Next, under the Do You Understand essential question for number 1, we are going to answer how ratios, rates, and unit rates are used to solve problems. Please begin by writing this information in your notes. Okay, if you need a little bit more time, please pause the video, finish writing this information, and then start the video again when you're ready to continue. You can use ratios or rates to represent related quantities with the same or different units in a problem. Since you're going to have maybe different units of measure, you can then multiply or divide to find unit rates and other equivalent ratios. Unit rates can also make it easier to compare two or more ratios. So you'll understand how you can move from a rate to a unit rate, and then use that unit rate to solve any other question depending on the problem. Number 2, using structure. Dorian buys 2 pounds of almonds for $21.98 and 3 pounds of dried apricots for $26.25. Which is less expensive per pound? How much less expensive? Complete the tables of equivalent ratios to help you solve. So as you can see in this problem, our information is organized in these tables. Tables are an effective way to show rates, unit rates, and other conversions. So you'll see as we go through this sheet here, the key concept page, that we're going to continue to make these tables. They only take a few seconds to draw out. So let's start with the almonds. We are given one of the numbers in the table. The weight of almonds here is 2 pounds. So we're going to go to our word problem and see if we have a dollar value for that too. And we do. Those 2 pounds of almonds cost $21.98. So we're going to fill that into the chart. Next, we have to understand that this problem wants us to convert to a unit rate. We don't want the cost of 2 pounds that's given. We want to solve for 1 pound. And we don't have a value in our word problem for the cost of just 1 pound of almonds. So what we want to do is look to our table, find the column that has both numbers filled in, so that would be here on the right hand side. And since I'm looking for this bottom number here, which is missing, I'm going from top to bottom. Okay, so I'm going to draw an arrow in the direction of my missing number. Okay, so it's from top to bottom. Since I'm going from a 2 to a 1 here, I'm going to identify not just the operation, but also the number that I'm going to use to go from the 2 to a 1. I need to divide by 2. Now remember that the golden rule of math is what you do to one side, you do to the other side. So in a table, you have a left and a right. If we divide the right-hand side by 2, we need to follow up by dividing the left-hand side by 2 as well. Using a calculator, you'll divide $21.98 by 2, and you'll get $10.99. Next, we're going to follow the same process with the dried apricots. Here, they give us the $26.25 as the cost of our purchased apricots. We need to fill in the weight, which is located or given to us in our word problem. That cost is for 3 pounds of apricots. What we're solving for again is the unit rate, the cost for 1 pound. Again, we're going to look to this right-hand side of the table since we have both numbers filled in. We're going to identify the operation and the number we're using to go from a 3 to a 1. Since we're comparing two different things, we know it has to be multiplication or division. And since our number is decreasing, that gives away that we're going to divide by 3. So we need to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to also divide by 3. Using a calculator, you'll figure out that $26.25 divided by 3 is $8.75. So now it's easy to compare the prices for the almonds and the apricots to determine which is cheaper per pound, since the number of pounds we're purchasing just a single pound, is the same. So here we're going to write down that the dried apricots are cheaper okay? And what we would want to do is identify by how much. So we're going to take the two numbers, the cost for 1 pound of each. We're going to subtract them. And we get a difference of $2.24. So the dried apricots are $2.24 cheaper, and that is per pound. Okay, question number 3, generalizing, how are unit rates and equivalent ratios related? Let me give you a moment to write that information down before we move on. Given a ratio, its unit rate is one of the equivalent ratios you can find, which means that they'll be equivalent or equal in value. A unit rate and any other equivalent ratio represents the same relationship between the two quantities in the given ratio. Okay, moving on to the open-ended questions. I'm going to really walk you through question 4, kind of prompt you a bit with question 5, giving you opportunities to fill in some information, and then leave you to solve number 6 completely on your own. In question number 4, Crystal is comparing 2 internet service plans. Plan 1 costs $34.99 per month. Plan 2 costs $134.97 every 3 months. If Crystal plans to stay with one service plan for 1 year, which should she choose, and how much will she save? Again, we want to organize our space. We are trying to compare 2 different plans. So we're going to have a plan 1, and that's where we'll start, and then also a plan 2. It is easy to compare our 2 plans if we organize our data using a table. And we're going to write our units of measure at the top. So we know that we're working with dollars and numbers of months. So in the left-hand column, we'll use a symbol for dollars, and in the right column, we'll use the word months for number of months, okay? And in this example, we're going to need to split this table like that. So with plan 1, we're given a cost of $34.99, and that's for 1 month. The question is asking, how much will we pay after a year? okay, on each plan. You're going to figure out which one's cheaper and how much you're going to save. So if we're talking about how much we're going to spend in a year, but our column here is in months, what number do you think I would need to write here? Go ahead and give me a number of months that we would need to place in this box. Since we want to calculate for a year, and this column represents months, we would use the number 12 to represent 12 months in the year. Now we don't know how much the plan is going to cost for that year yet, so we're going to look to see if we can identify the operation and the number we're going to use to solve this problem. So here you'll notice that the number is going from a 1 to a 12. So we wouldn't really be dividing. But since our units of measure are different, we're going to use the opposite, which is multiplication. So we're going to multiply by 12. 1 times 12 is 12. Now the golden rule of math is what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So we're going to multiply that $34.99 by 12. Go ahead, do that on your calculator, and write the dollar value in this missing box. The cost for this plan for 12 months for the entire year would be $419.88. Let's go ahead and compare that to Plan 2. I'm going to go ahead, draw another table. The top, we're going to have the same headings. Our units of measure are dollars and months. And we're going to fill in this top row here with the information provided in the word problem for Plan 2. Now we know that the cost will be $134.97. But that's not for 1 month, that's for 3 months. Now again, we're trying to compare these plants after an entire year. So we know that we need to get to a year or to those 12 months. So since we have both numbers filled in on the month side, I'm going to figure out the operation and number I'm going to use to go from a 3 to a 12. We would need to multiply by 4. Make sure you do that to the other side as well. Using your calculator, go ahead and multiply this dollar amount for Plan 2 by the 4 and write your number in that blank space. The total cost for a year of that service would be $539.88. So we know that Plan 1 is cheaper. Let's go ahead and write that up here. So Plan 1 is cheaper. And then we want to figure out how much cheaper. So we will subtract our two amounts for the two plans, and we get a difference of $120. So it is $120 cheaper. Okay, so that's great. That was pretty straightforward. With question number 5, though, we are going to have to add a step because we're not going to find a nice, neat whole number to multiply by to get to our answer. We're going to have to kind of do something in between. We're going to have to add a step, and that's where unit rates come into play. So let's go ahead and read this question. It says that Pam reads 126 pages of her summer reading book in 3 hours. Zach read 180 pages of his summer reading book in 4 hours. If they continue to read at the same speeds, will they both finish the 215-page book after 5 total hours of reading? Explain. Now, we're not comparing service plans, we're comparing the reading rates of 2 different students. So we'll organize our space by student. We'll start with Pam. We're going to go ahead and draw a table so we can place the units of measure at the top and then solve. Now our units of measure, usually it's the word right after the numbers. So we have pages and we have hours. So we're going to write number of pages, okay, we'll abbreviate, and number of hours. Now here we're going to need to split our table into 3 more rows. The top row is where you fill in the information you're given. So we have 126 pages, and that was for 3 hours. Okay. Now remember, we want to get to 5 hours to see if she can finish this book in those 5 hours, but remember our rate is a 3, and you can't just go from 3 to 5. Like what would you can't multiply 3 by 2 because you get 6. If you multiply by 1.5, you get 4.5. So that doesn't work out so well for us. So what we can do instead is add this extra step where we're finding the unit rate. And to find the unit rate, because you want to get to a 1 with a unit rate, you're just dividing by the original number. So since we're starting with 3, we're going to divide by 3 to get to that 1. Okay, but remember we have to do the same thing to the other side. So we're going to take the 126, we're going to divide it by 3. Go ahead and do that on the calculator and fill in your number right in that spot. Okay, so at that rate of 1 hour, she will read 42 pages. Now that we know how many pages she can read in 1 hour, we can figure out how many she would read in 5 hours because we just need to multiply by 5. And 42 times 5 is 210. So, will Pam finish a 215-page book in 5 hours? Well, no. She can only read 210 pages in 5 hours. So she's going to get very close, but she'll be 5 pages short from finishing the book in time. Let's take a look at Zach. Take a moment and draw a very similar table here to Pam. And I'd like you to fill in those top 2 boxes, that first row underneath pages and hours for Zach, and you'll have to go back into the passage to get your information. Zach reads at a rate of 180 pages in 4 hours. So he reads more pages, but he does read also for an extra hour. So we just want to see, is he a faster reader than Pam? We don't really know that yet until we get down to a unit rate. But then also, will he finish the book in time? So what you're going to do is determine the unit rate for Zach. We want to get to a 1. Go ahead and see what we did over here for Pam. And then do the same method, okay, for Zach. Here we need to divide by 4 to go from 4 hours to a single hour. We're going to then divide by 4 on the other side. And 180 divided by 4 is 45. So just based on the unit rate, you can tell who's the faster reader. Zach is able to read 3 more pages than Pam every hour. Next, we want to see if Zach can finish this book in 5 hours. Since we know that he reads 45 pages in 1 hour, and we want to get to 5 hours, we're going to multiply by 5. "45 times 5 is 225. So, can Zach finish a 215-page book in 5 hours? Yes. In fact, he'll finish the book and he's got time to start another book. So we're going to just write that Pam will not finish in time, but Zach will. Last question. It says Nora and Eli are making homemade spring rolls for a party. Nora can make 8 spring rolls in 10 minutes, and Eli can make 10 spring rolls in 12 minutes. If they each make 40 spring rolls, who will finish first? You are going to complete this problem independently. Just start by organizing your space. You're going to need a table for Nora, and you're going to need a table for Eli. All right, you may begin. You should have identified that your units of measure are number of rolls and number of minutes. So that would be the heading at the top of both